See, those are the campgrounds I look for. The campgrounds that nobody else will go to because they won't drive their camper down a rough road. That's
Well, they're complaining about now, and people won't launch their boat there now. They drive over the other side. I do, and it gets so, when you pull it out and it's all muddy, I go home and, or it's raining. That's one of the big things, the roads, Park Road. And that's operation. Short little dock, we just been bitching about that. It's really hard with a 24-foot. Blow down into the lake. I've almost had that happen a couple of times. So anyways, and then the information and camper state regulation. Oh.
all right. Congratulations.
It was rainy a couple of weeks ago. I was able to go through the whole
Yeah,
course in about 3 days. Anything else?
Into it all at once.
They've made that online course a lot better and a lot more interactive.
Oh, the
since they first
citizen.
came out.
2 episodes, but then I got stuck.
Actually a beta tester.
So
with
I
Brad.
got pulled. I haven't been able to get back to it. So I'm like, I just need to find the time to just do it all. So
Okay,
that it's,
where's my name?
it's good, right?
Did it with money?
In person, and I had one of them I had to do not in person, but I way liked it in
Yeah.
person,
Oh, they're
but then I was there with people from other townships that I knew. So that was, that was good hearing their
Here's the one
questions.
I would do
question
better in person. I
how we
honestly,
could,
but yeah, it's better than nothing.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's like,
get around what it was. And anyway, it just listed all of the existing ordinances.
Yeah.
And that's really good that you're willing
I find it
to do
really
that.
interesting. It's just so many layers. that
Yeah.
I didn't realize there were so many layers.
We could move those 2 tables together so that you can, because I don't know how to do this.
I know Heidi won't be.
She won't? Oh,
So she's in Florida, I think. So I'll just.
well, that explains why. Yes.
This.
Planning and zoning guide.
Yeah, and this is a quick one.
Yeah.
She'll be online, I
I've
guess.
gotten a lot of that out of there.
We need a spot for Randy, though.
Here's the City State Park, all their campsites.
Oh, yeah.
After you drug all that back there, what about Randy? Do we need a spot for him?
Oh, so what they had in there, they adopted that, so never be okay. It's ridiculous.
I don't know.
It's a square foot or somewhere, 3,000 for a tent, can't. They went and put all that, I object to all that, because put a minimums down there, let the developer decide
Yeah.
who he's catering to.
See, you're thinking
I can-
of it
I can
from the government.
shrink my stuff for him.
Zoning is supposed to be all about the minimum
I have-
regulations
Exactly.
necessary. Just,
And
and
they're putting.
the only reason we have to do the minimum is people keep fighting with each other. So let's put the
Yeah,
minimum,
they're
and then-
proposing, well, we specify one site for tents, and then
Don't tell me how much solar cost is, how many fully cars this. This is dictated.
Oh, that's
Let's
nice.
decide what the-
Nice.
Yeah, maybe something that's 100%. Some can't go, maybe they go like the big one down there, the
Oh, yeah.
expensive one, that's,
Yeah.
and then, at least I got them to
Oh, unmute, just warning y'all. It's unmuted now.
Very.
It's as loud as it gets.
Is it pulled up in the settings on there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Everybody can hear me anyway, but. Rachel, can you check your microphone? Okay, hers is working. Someone just shut mine down on purpose. It's on. If there's a mic to be on half power, it's mine. Delusions. I have no delusions of quietness.
No, yours is right up there with everyone else's.
Okay, well, on a functional level, it's certainly not functioning.
Tap it.
But just barely compared to yours. I'm tapping it pretty hard. I guess mine's the right mic to have.
Yours.
Yeah, leave it down. We can do without. Everybody good to go? Are you set, Lois?
Yep.
We'll start the meeting at 7 on the dot. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone, this evening. Lois, would you give us roll call?
Mangus,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Here.
Keaton, absent. Robel,
Here.
Darrow, absent. Steelman,
Here.
Belmuth, absent.
Okay, and all three of those were called in and all various different reasons, but they're all excused absences for the meeting minutes. All right, conflict of interest. For those of you that are newer and haven't dealt with this as much, we tend to declare anything that you think might possibly get anywhere near being a conflict. And then the PC can weigh in if they feel that there's an issue, unless it's something that's just absolutely clear cut. Like when I had something come before the PC, I was out here. It was not a judgment call. So under conflict of interest for me, there's nothing with our regular agenda, with the exception of we have the golf course coming up. I do not see it as a conflict of interest, but I do own properties on Crisp Road. So the only impact, I'm not adjacent, but the only impact I would see would be potentially traffic issues. But Crisp is a very short road and I own 4 properties on it. So anyone else?
I don't know that it's a conflict of interest, but I worked for a very long time for the people who originally developed the High Point Golf Course. And I'm not sure, from what everything I've read, I don't think it's the same people who are reworking this. So I want to make sure everybody understands it. That I don't know that it's a conflict of interest, but I think it should be mentioned.
Okay, well, and obviously you're not close enough to know whether or not it's
Right, yeah, I haven't worked for them in years anymore.
Okay.
But for years I did in a lot of different capacities.
okay. And
And I live on Crisp Road between Arnold and Moore, so right in the middle of
right in the
road.
right in the neighborhood.
Yeah, in the neighborhood of the golf course.
Okay. So I will open up all of us. Well, Carl, do you, do you have any opinion?
No, I'm not a golfer.
Okay. I could be prejudiced against. Okay, so any discussion, conversation, I personally don't see any of those as being a conflict. Beyond, you know, when we set standards for a house, most of us have a house. There's going to be some crossover. I will, given the information you have here, I would like to open it up, if it's okay with the PC, to get Bob and Randy's input on these.
I think it's a good idea.
Do you gentlemen have any insight or suggestions? Do you see any issues? We have some vague connections, but nothing adjacent. Randy, I guess.
Guess I'm not sure exactly the properties that you own or where they are in relationship to the project. You
Crispin Williamsburg Road.
and Williamsburg Road.
Yeah,
Okay.
I own the corner of Crispin Williamsburg Road.
I don't see anything at the surface. You might want to consult the attorney though.
What about me? I'm in the middle of Arnold and Moore.
Guess while you're contacting them, you can just disclose all of it,
Okay.
you know. I mean, in that, those roads are likely to be impacted by traffic,
Mhm.
you know, so.
Given that, you feel that that would be something we contact them in between now and the next meeting, or that we shouldn't look at anything this evening? I don't see it as a conflict, but if we can't, if it is a conflict, we're done for the evening. So Bob,
I would like to say that if anyone thinks they have a conflict, they should state what they believe that conflict is. Simple adjacency, in my experience, owning property and even being within a notice area, if it were subject to a public hearing, doesn't necessitate actually a conflict of interest. You know, they're leaning, not necessarily having a financial gain, but a direct familial relationship. Do you see any potential for financial gain from this? Do you see any direct personal conflict from you owning that property that would be in conflict with the, you know, with you making decisions based upon the standards of review? So again,
which is where I'm at.
sure.
I see it as a close enough relationship to disclose, but not enough to be technically and actually a conflict. I'm not conflicted.
So I would just add that the action tonight is not approval of the
It's just
site plan. It is preliminary, so there's no final action that's
Yes.
contemplated for this, and we're probably quite some time away from final approvals.
Do either of you feel personally that there's a close enough relationship or proximity to be a conflict?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
So I would take that as a consensus of the PC, that none of us feel that any of the rest of us have a direct conflict rising to the level of necessitating our recusing ourselves. The representative of the golf course, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know, I don't have your name down. Do you have any issue with us participating?
I would only
From what
ask
you've heard?
maybe where she is specifically, maybe. I mean, that would be if you're in the subdivision that's adjacent to
I'm
us.
not.
Or you're not, okay. I don't really see an issue.
Okay,
Thank you.
I just wanted to let you weigh in as well. All right, so we will move on. And please record for the minutes that the PC did not find a conflict beyond a conflict in what was disclosed
Can
from the members.
Can I just say, because I'm new and I'm not, I just want to make sure the only thing definitely no financial gain or anything like that, but so Bob, you made me feel very comfortable, like I don't have a conflict, but you wanting to talk to the attorney makes me like, the only thing I could see is the traffic as well.
Mhm.
As being a potential, it would impact me personally, so pulling in and out, so I just wanted to say that, but
So maybe between now and the future meetings, we could touch base with the attorney and make sure that there isn't any issues that he would raise.
And I don't feel that it rises to the level where we want to stall the project another month as well.
Okay.
Because we also will have other members who could fill in the gaps if the attorney comes up with a different perspective than what we've discussed here.
Sounds good.
So would you like that forwarded to the attorney to just run it by him?
It's a good idea, I think.
I think so.
I know it doesn't meet the technical criteria, so we'll move on. All right, I would like to open it up for public comment. We are going to start with individuals on Zoom. If you are on Zoom and you would like to make a public comment this evening, please use the raise hand icon on your program or wave at Lois and get her attention. And Lois, could you tell us how many people we have on Zoom?
There's 3 other people on Zoom.
Okay, anybody, any public comment? All right, I will open it up to Town Hall. Do we have any public comment from Town Hall? Please come up to the lectern.
Linda Slopesma, Miami Beach Road. I have some comments regarding you're going to be reviewing condo development regulations. So I read through the packet and I just felt it was important to remind everybody that this has been a really hot topic for a lot of people in the last, I would say 8 months. I wouldn't say that for myself personally, it's been a hot topic, but this is what I've heard. Proposed condo developments don't fit in with adjacent properties, conflict with the master plan because condo development proposed is in an area where large parcels with single family homes, so it doesn't seem to fit. People also say they're concerned about things that don't fit with adjacent uses, which is kind of the same as the first thing I said. But I think it's important to say that some people are concerned about commercial uses versus subdivisions and that like neither of them fit. And why is that okay to try and change the area without it lining up with the master plan or an overall plan? I've also heard comments about shouldn't it have to be a PUD? Why or why not? Will this property become vacation rentals and have a lot of turnover of people? Do we really allow that or don't we allow it? And does the developer know that supposedly Whitewater Township doesn't allow short-term rentals being like, I think less than 30 days. And then the last thing probably that came up about a year ago was impact. Proposals that seem to be extreme, too impactful to the community in terms of too many units, too dense, too much traffic impact, water and sewage concerns, impact on wetlands. So I think it's important that all of you realize that this whole thing about condo developments is a hot topic. So ask yourself, does the revision you have in front of you answer those questions? Is it crystal clear that the township has a level of sensible control regarding development, such as for condos? What are the key changes and improvements to the ordinance that you are making? I have to admit I'm a little behind because I was sick for about a month and so I missed the last meeting. So what problems have you specifically fixed in the ordinance? That wasn't really super obvious to me that it answered those questions I mentioned in the beginning. And does the township actually decide whether a development will be a PUD or a condo development? And is that decision clear? And what is the difference and why? I didn't see PUD anywhere in this whole thing, which I found a little surprising because everybody keeps asking that question. Nobody seems to know why. So I've read a lot about PUDs lately. Just on a side note, it's been in the ticker quite a bit. There's been lots of discussions about PUDs with respect to the senior center development proposal on the waterfront. So what I read in the newspaper is that PUDs are planned developments tailored to a site features. So, and then I looked up online under planningmi.org, which said PUDs are a form of land design that usually focuses on the integration of natural features of a site with the new development to be constructed, not necessarily just condos. It can be other commercial development. So I think at the end of the day, all of us can agree that zoning ordinances, and I would call those rules, need to be simple to understand and simple to follow. When we have simple to understand rules, it is easy to follow, and this leads to minimal administrative costs and compliance with the rules. So we don't have compliance problems, which I don't think anybody wants to have compliance problems. So this is our community. We need to plan such that it reflects the desire of the residents, not the developers. And there needs to be room for denser, more affordable housing. I think we all understand that. The question is, where do we really want that to be and how will we accomplish it? So that it is a plan, not just a haphazard, whoever has something for sale and whoever's willing to buy it gets whatever they want. So anyway, appreciate your time and efforts.
Thank you, Linda. Vicki, it's all yours.
Good evening, Vicki Beam. As I always say, thank you for your time. I know that you're taking away from your own personal lives to be here. We are counting on all of you. We're counting you to represent the township. I echo some of the comments that were made by Linda. We're in a definite crossroads of where we're heading in our entire northern Michigan area. People are moving here in large numbers. This is a big package this evening. With a lot going on. And I truly ask each of you, how much time have you spent preparing for this to be able to discuss the things that will impact us forever? When you make some of these decisions, you can't go back. The packet didn't come out until Friday. I don't know how many of you looked at it over the weekend. I definitely took time in going through this. We have a private golf course that is being presented. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but if you really looked at all the impact it will have on this township, I would expect a lot of the residents of Whitewater Township will probably never set foot on that golf course. When you look at the package, they're going to have a shuttle for those that come in with their private planes to come there, and the cabins that they're going to have. I had a home on Crisp Road, and I can speak to the condition of Arnold Road, deteriorating on the sides. I can't imagine what additional traffic is going to be. We were told when the governor came in that she was going to fix the damn roads. The damn roads haven't been fixed. And every township board meeting that I've been going to doesn't sound like we have money there to be fixing the roads. So I would be very concerned. Full disclosure, I was a neighbor of Rachel, so we would not have been back up to this golf course, but there's certainly people that are going to be, and they're going to be impacted. And so again, for something that is going to be private, that is going to have impact upon the township residents, I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Golf courses are green for a reason. They're fertilized and watered a lot. What kind of impact will that have? I was sorry when the golf course closed before, but this is looking to be quite the expansion. We've been talking about the pressure of developing. I do not want to be known as the Bags Road people at this point. My husband and I are not developers. It is not just Bags Road that is getting this pressure, and it's going to continue throughout. And I agree, it does not seem like our ordinances are in place. I will say, I'm extremely impressed with the package and what Randy has put together. I'm looking forward to hearing everything that everybody has to say. I hope that we're able to finish the thoughts of each of you that voice your opinions. I still believe there are gaps in our laws, as I will say, ordinances, especially when it comes to the development, site condos, regular condos, subdivisions, PUDs, all the other things that you want to throw in there. We are in a rural community. We all moved here for that particular reason, or have been here and haven't moved because we like it here. It is part of our master plan, yet we have some of these available. Some of the things that are in there, we're talking about development, that we're not just talking about green space, buffer, maintaining the integrity of the neighbors in that particular area. As I've stated, I thank you again for representing. Please don't let the pressure of big money steer you away from what our master plan is.
Connie Highmore, Bags Road. I also want to thank all of you for your time and efforts in working at making our township what it is that the people want. And as I looked through the survey, I saw a lot of comments about how they want to keep it rural. They want the country atmosphere. They want the peaceful. And so I think that a focus, to continue focusing on that, if they do another survey, I think that would be awesome. So that we hear the people's voices. Maybe they've changed their minds. Maybe they want a lot of industry in neighborhoods, but that's not what I'm hearing. So I want to thank Brandy for the package, that the portion of the package that you put together. I think it was easy to read and professionally put together. I know that there's been some controversy on how Kim's been able to do it because of not having access to some documents that haven't been available to her, but it looked really nice and was easy to read. So I thank you all for your time and have a good meeting.
Do we have any other public comment from town hall? All right. I'm going to hit reverse for just a moment. I apologize. My eyesight is failing me. Comes with the years. And we skipped over set and adjust agenda, I believe. So I just jumped right over that. So if we can back it up to set and adjust agenda. I would suggest that we move the golf course review, or I would like to propose that we move that ahead of earlier in the schedule, as opposed to having it as the last thing that we do. That way we can use up the balance of our time on one of the other topics that we have. That I think is the one item we do need to address this evening. So we could move that in between A and B or anywhere earlier on the agenda.
I would say after reports.
Okay.
Before 10.
Right before unfinished business.
Yeah.
Does that work for everybody? Are you comfortable with that?
Yep.
All right. So we will move that ahead in the agenda. And are any other adjustments or additions? Nope. Okay. Hearing none, we will skip down. Now we are past public comment. All right, we don't have any public hearings this evening. Approval of the minutes for October 5th. I did have a couple of questions on this, and maybe you guys can help me out. Under unfinished business number 2, under materials requested, we have general ordinances and zoning ordinances. Those were discussed, but my understanding was we were only requesting access to the general ordinances and copies of the zoning ordinance. Did we ask specifically for everyone to have a copy of the general ordinances? I thought we were just asking for a copy that we would have access to.
I understood it.
I
that
think
we
they're
were
working on
asking
it.
for a copy, but
Okay,
yeah, I could have been mistaken too.
I think they're working on copies for everyone, but okay. Then I will defer. And under 3, the discussion of medical marijuana amendment. I don't see in here that I see that we recommended approval of the medical marijuana definitions, but my understanding was we had also included adoption of the primary caretaker standards in Article 37. And I don't see this in the text. Am I missing something somewhere, Lois? Or I believe that was section 6 of the proposed amendment. And then at the bottom, just before the box that says motion, the planning commission recommends approval of the definition of ... regarding medical marijuana grown processing. But we also recommended adoption of the caretaker guidelines in Article 37. And I don't see that here recorded in the motion. That's from my memory. Am I missing something, or I thought we recommended approval of that as well?
Well, I wasn't here and I don't know what was discussed, but I don't
Okay.
see it in here.
Yeah, I don't see it in here. Rachel, Carl,
I thought we did.
I thought we had that in there.
Yeah, the medical marijuana. We recommended.
The home grow,
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
I thought that's what we had that in as well, Rachel.
I'm gonna defer to you guys because I don't remember. I'd have to look through my notes.
Okay.
Okay, whereas marijuana caregiver operations are permitted within the state of Michigan and Whitewater Township,
Mhm.
whereas some guidelines will be helpful for residents and neighbors to be aware of the standards for such a thing. That
Yes, and then, so we actually did two votes and two motions. We recommended disapproval of part of 1 and all of 2 through 5. And then we have 3 more whereases, and we recommended adoption of, I think it was 3 of the definitions and the guidelines for primary caregiver that are in, the ones that are in Article 37 of the ordinance. Caregiver, I believe. Yeah, marijuana primary caregiver grow guidelines. I believe we retained that. Would it be possible for you to check the tape, or I don't know the best way to go about it? But I think we have a consensus. Mike wasn't here, but I think we have a consensus. Well, a majority, which would be 2 out of 3.
we'll put the words in there.
Okay. Was that, do you remember? Was that your
No,
recollection?
I copied this from the paper that we had.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have my pages from last month.
Definition and approval of the
Primary caregiver standards in Article 37. Guidelines. What word do you gentlemen like? Ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Okay. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Any other adjustments? We covered a lot of territory last month, so. Well, we will if I have a motion. Do I have a motion on last month's meeting minutes?
Motion to approve them?
That's up to you.
As amended. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended, and we have a second from Carl. Any further discussion? Okay. Lois, roll call when ready.
Robo,
Yes.
Darrow is absent. Jacobson,
Yes.
Keaton is absent. Mingus,
Yes.
Steelman,
Yes.
Mullins is absent.
Uncooperative. The packet, not you folks. Okay. Gotta clarify. All right. Meeting minutes for October 5th are approved. Correspondence, we all saw we had some information from Linda provided to us, some reference information on short-term rentals in the vicinity. Bob, you are up. Zoning administrators report.
I'm going to take very little of your time this evening because you do have a full packet, but I just want to say, in addition to the normal pressures that Whitewater Township is enduring, in addition to the public comments you received, I still get regular phone calls. I also want to say, as most of you already know, and is evident by your new business, the moratorium on site plan review has been lifted in special uses, not yet on the PUDs and condo development. Hence, you have a nice new item on your agenda tonight. And I would like to also reiterate, in addition to this being a preliminary site plan review, that we are fortunate to have Randy on board and hopefully relieve some of the pressure off of your planning commission chair, because I too would like to echo the sentiments of the public in seeing the materials that he inserted into the packet and the ease in which it's comparable and easy to read and put together and navigate through. And I think the preliminary site plan review may even offer you another opportunity to utilize this expertise as we move forward into future larger, more complex site plans and special uses. And I'm working on putting a report together to get for you in preparation for your annual report that the township board expects. Basically a summary of the land uses, zoning districts, and the list of types of building that's going on.
You're doing it, I won't have to. Works for me. Okay. All right, chair's report. The zoning board ordinance project, all of those documents have been forwarded on to the supervisor. He has them. I do not know the status of them. There were aside from a little of the logistics of saving files under the same kind of process, I believe all but one of the articles was in good shape. We have accurate copies that we can work off of. 25 is the one holdout, and I have not yet seen a Word copy produced with our most recent amendments incorporated into it. So I don't know how the township handled that. The ones that I had available, I went through, cleaned up, did a comparison on the Word files that we had when we finally got them from Cheryl's computer, with what was online, what was available. And so we should be very close to having a complete Word copy of the ordinance available. Short-term rentals, I want to reiterate, we did go over last month previously, but given the public comment we had through correspondence, the status on that was the planning commission had essentially set that aside in favor of working on some more critical items in front of us, the things we're working on right now. Given that the state legislature is currently working on short-term rentals. And Mike, I think you were the only one that was here at the time, but we had voted to not address short-term rentals until the state legislature completed their work on them, given that we could end up spending a significant amount of our time for an extended period of time on something that would be a moot point as soon as the legislature completed. So this body would have the option of changing that decision, but that's where we're at the moment, was waiting until we hear from them. And not really just waiting, just prioritizing this not at the top of our list. And then the last item I wanted to bring up relates to the master plan and general interest. Randy, you had asked me about the history of Whitewater Township. So with my chair's report, I wanted to share and make available to everybody. Some of you may, I'm sure Mike recognizes this. Anybody else recognize this? I told Randy, this is the best book I know. Okay, it's the only book I know of actually on Whitewater Township history. And this is Rob Samuel's, his personal recollections of his family homesteading property here in Whitewater Township.
That's His book.
This is his book, yep. And I told Randy, I said, well, I said, I have a copy. I had an autograph copy. And my husband was like, no, you can't touch that. So I was actually, believe it or not, able to pick up another copy, which is amazing since there were only a couple hundred made total. He self-published it, so there aren't very many of these out there. But I would like to make this available. Randy, you have first dibs. If you would like to borrow it,
I already have a copy.
you got a copy, okay. There may be, Bob, does this look familiar to you?
It doesn't. I'd be interested in.
Okay, I was gonna say the township might have a copy, but I didn't know. No. I'm going to make this available. Anybody who would like to borrow the copy, check it out for me for a while, go through it. If nothing else, it's fascinating in the history, the historical photos, the perspective of someone who lived through the origination of Whitewater Township. So,
I know I gave them to my daughters, but I think
Okay.
I have one too.
okay. So anybody, if you want to borrow it, give me a holler. It is available to be lent out. And the same thing goes for the public. If nobody at the PC still needs to read it, I'm more than happy to lend it out to anybody who would like to go through it. All right, and we have Heidi's report. There won't be one this evening as she's not with us. But she did, give the board a report from the planning commission, and it's the first time we've had a planning commission report to the board in about 2+ years.
Very long time.
Very long time, in excess of 2 years, actually, because it predates the election. So that was nice to have it coming from their own representative. Carl, do we have anything from the ZBA?
No, there's been no meetings.
Okay,
Give them a couple months. We got something
you've
on-
been warned.
We got something on the back burner.
Okay. And there are no committee reports. Randy, did you have anything additional for us?
No, all of my material is under
Okay.
the under agenda items.
Yeah, you pretty much knocked it out. All right. Then I am going to jump down as we discussed, and we're going to skip right down to new business. And preliminary review of the proposed golf course and accessory uses that will now be off of Moore Road is the proposal on the previous golf course property. Bob, did you want to start an introduction?
I just want to make a quick statement in the packet, just direct you to the cover letter that I wrote that pretty much introduces the preliminary site plan review opportunity to you, and note that golf courses are listed in the A1 agriculture district as a permitted use. Permitted uses, I have a little bit of jurisdiction, but the review of the zoning ordinance relegates this site plan to you. And again, I just would like to leave the rest of it up to the applicant's representative, Scott, who you have here, because he probably knows the project much better than all of us.
I would hope so.
I hope so too.
I'm going to relocate. Yeah, there's some things we just don't try to even pretend we can spell.
My name is Scott Joswiak, and I'm project engineer for the new golf course project. Interesting about this project is that a guy by the name of Tom Doak was the original golf course designer, and this was his first golf course. And on the screen right now is an aerial image dating back to 2006, which showed where that golf course sat. And in a second, I'll show you how everything's transpired over the last several years. But Tom Doak designed this course, and he built this course as well. And this was his first golf course he ever did. And since this course, Tom Doak has gone on to build a lot of golf courses. I'm not going to even announce the number, of which 7 of those golf courses are in the top 100 in the world. So just to kind of give you a sense of, you don't have to do a lot of math to kind of figure out that that's a pretty significant percentage of golf courses in the world that a guy that actually lives in town has notoriety and is considered one of the currently one of the best golf course architects, and then some may argue best of all time. So, but in 2000, I think this is the aerial imagery here is about 2006, but it was in 2008, I believe, that the golf course was closed and sold and went to. Let's get my mouse bumped up here. Not working. Need to be a little closer for a second. Okay, so back to where we were. So again, the golf course went out of business and was sold, and then that property now looks like this. So the hop farm and their production facility is still in place, or is in place now. The hop farm goes all the way up into here. This is Hoxie's farm. This is Bates Road, Arnold Crisp Road goes that way. So this is actually an old irrigation pond that was constructed for the course. It was dug out way back when. So as you can see in the aerial imagery, this is I think it's 2022 maybe. I think it's what it's dated up there. You can still see the holes are still here. A lot of the car paths are still there. The only thing that really changed was the hop farm kind of consumed what was the front 9. And the clubhouse sits right here. And then, most of the course didn't really move past this location. So so where we ended up now is that we are in a situation where we're not going to retake over the hop farm, but the current developer who sought interest from Tom Doak once again pulled it together that they are going to purchase the I'm going to turn on the new zoning lines, the new property lines, and so this is what the new course outline is going to be within. So the new red line is the new property boundary, which will be the new High Point Golf Course. This piece will remain hop farm, and we're going to be putting this lot line in here. We're actually doing a lot line transfer to move that in. The township line is right here. So everything to the left of this is Acme Township. Everything to the right, which is this chunk right here, is what we're here for tonight. We've actually have a crew at Acme Township for our final meeting with them tonight with the Planning Commission. We were able to get started on that. Obviously, you guys had a moratorium, so we've had a delayed start with you guys. So so we are multi-jurisdictional with this project. So that project is currently being final episode with the Planning Commission. The golf course is going to lay out. We're going to reuse a lot. These holes here are actually the same holes that are there today. This is a little bit of a variation to the hole that was originally number 18. The clubhouse is not going to come with this, like I mentioned. So that's going to stay with the hop farm. And then they've the current owner of the underlying property had acquired a 40-acre that's south here. So this new red line is a little bit bigger than the original boundary to the south. The same owner bought this large tract of land going this way. He also owns the hop farm, the hops orchard right here. That's right here. So this is all currently under one ownership right now. So with the new layout, we obviously are extending the golf course into Whitewater Township, and in the service and so forth is going to occur in the Whitewater Township side. We are proposing an entrance off of Moore Road. It is a cut, but we've got it engineered and figured out. So how that's all going to work, but we're trying to get it up where we can get good sight distance back and forth. The drive will meander up onto the bulk of the property. There's just as a reference, this is 25 acres. This area is about 25 acres, so it's quite a jaunt to just even get back up into the property. Coming up in, there'll be a driving range with some tee boxes, and then a little training facility building that'll have indoor training devices such as mats. You'll actually be able to hit from inside if you want, with some large garage doors. There'll be a continuation of the practice facility. There's going to be some chipping green and some different amenities like that. We're going to have an initial bank of parking that'll be up at this location, and then employee and some other parking will be down below in this valley down here. So because you have tremendous access to golf carts and stuff, shuttling and moving people around is not our priority, or is not a priority as far as getting lots of parking up by the building. This right here is where the clubhouse will situate. And we do have some parking for barrier-free and so forth, and just immediate guests and stuff. So that building is going to house food service, beverage service, pro shop, customary items such as that'll be found in most clubhouses. The number 1 tee is right here, and then we've got a putting green, a practice putting green. As we continue down through here, we do have some accommodations for people to stay the night. Those are like 4-bedroom. These are 4-bedroom units for like foursomes. And then this is old. We've gotten rid of this building, but we've got these two. So don't pay attention to that. But we will have some accommodations. These accommodations will only have like maybe a kitchenette at best. There'll be probably more function like a if you could use a term, hotel room versus anything, but it's going to be something that guests who do come from outside the area, can stay on property and not have to leave property with the sole purpose of, we're here to golf. This is what this facility is. That's the message with this whole project, is to golf. So we're trying to keep the people on the property. So those are the main structures that we're incorporating. And then the whole layout is going to be such that we, number 1 goes out this way, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we come back around. This is actually 16, 17, and then 18. So back to home. I just want to reiterate, this is a members only course, and there's not going to be a lot of them. There's going to be somewhere around 200. And a lot of them are going to be, there's going to even be some international numbers, as well as, from around the States. So, so it is going to be just a very low impact. It's a very customary use from a golf course perspective. The golf courses today are going to these sorts of amenities to have on the properties. And candidly, it cuts down on people having to move in and out of here. So if you have these kind of accommodations, then people can stay on property. And as we indicated too, there'll be a lot of them will be shuttled in, and so therefore, our parking numbers aren't extravagant. The ordinance does say that we can have a certain percentage of parking that isn't on asphalt. So we know that we are not going to need a lot of parking, so we did accommodate for that in our, just our parking lot area. I mean, candidly, we have a lot of area for grass overflow. We've got a lot of property on this. This property is, gotta get the exact numbers, but there's, I'm not gonna be able to recite the numbers, but the difference between the acreage that we have in Whitewater versus Acme, I can look at the plans and get that. So. Overall, we've been studying the site, the clubhouse, this location right here. If I kind of, let's see if I can bend this down. You can kind of see the relief that this clubhouse is sitting up on a knob, and it looks, straight down through the whole course. So it is the spot for the clubhouse. That when you walk up there, yeah, that's where it's got to go. So. We are meeting all the setbacks. Our buildings are going to meet all the height restrictions. We don't have an architect on board yet, but we will upon successful approval through this process, and we'll, tidy up whatever we need to do on that. There will be some car paths, not 100% car paths running through the property. And wherever we have, since we've gone through the process in Acme Township, we intend to take those same items that we've adopted over there into this project, such as vegetated berms where we've got low areas. One point on this is that where you drive by the Bear or Spruce Run or Wolverine, you can't help but look at the lush green grass that you see out there. This course is going to be extremely unique in the area because it's going to use what's called a fine fescue. It's not going to be bright green. It's going to be more of that. The only way I can say it, and we will have Tom Doak more than likely at the next meeting to explain that, but it will be, it's a hardier grass, doesn't require as much input. So we don't have as nearly as much fertilizer treatment as was going to, say, the Bear or Wolverine. And it's because of the grass selection. And that takes me all the way back to the Tom Doak philosophy of minimalist design and minimalist disruption to the property. It is all about working with the property. There's a few spots we got to get in and do some, a little more grading. But for the most part, it's working with the land. And in fact, you won't see, except for a couple of holes where we were doing some recontouring, very minimal recontouring. In fact, it won't show up in a 2-foot contour map, where we're making changes. So obviously you've got to strip all the material off, but what goes back on, interestingly enough, for those that may know or not know, there is very little topsoil on this property. It was I don't know what kind of trees were on it, but it was all clear cut. I think sometime after Mr. Johnson, who's the underlying owner, bought the property. But it has very little topsoil on it. And in golf courses really don't have topsoil. Interestingly enough, there isn't any topsoil put back onto a golf course. The best golf course is sand. And in fact, if you walk back on the original holes back there, maybe you know that there's no topsoil except for what's, the thatch and stuff that's now prevalent there. So, what's really got me and thrilled about the project is the fact that we do have one of the best golf course architects in the world right now working on this project, and he has many published books, and I encourage you to read about him, interviews and so forth about how he designs golf courses, because this project, I know we'll get into discussions about the clubhouse and the other amenities and stuff. It is about the golf, and the draw to this project by the people that are investing in this is the golf. But they need certain amenities to be able to, participate and make things work out. So, but the golf course is the target of this project. And that's why if any of this project ceases with respect to golfing, my understanding and our understanding is that all the other uses are not allowed anymore. So whereas all these items that are on this property, whether it's the lodging or the clubhouse or all that goes away as soon as they decide they're no longer a golf course. So want to reiterate the fact that we are a golf course first, providing auxiliary structures that support the golf course project. And we feel we've got a pretty stellar project sitting in front of you. A low impact, I can't stress that. We are looking at a large tract of land, and this is a very low impact use for such a gorgeous piece of land. I was gonna just take a quick look and just show you guys, I did put together your zoning map for the area. Green is state land. White is private, but ag, listed as ag in the zoning ordinance. Obviously, we got residential uses up and through here. But, and then red is some commercial that's along Bates Road for Acme Township. So I think with that, I'll just kind of, maybe we can shut this off. Kim, do you think? And I mean,
Yeah, that's
anything
fine.
else? Okay, and you can go back to your home.
Okay, so that along with our packet, I think gives us a intro, I guess, to what we're looking at. Are you open to questions from the planning commission? Ladies and gentlemen.
I have a question.
Yes.
That strip of hops farm that is right next to Schofield Trail that comes up to Crisp Road, who did you say owned that currently?
The stretch that goes up to Crisp Road?
Yeah. that little
It's
chunk.
the same, Mark Johnson, who's the same owner, I believe, as because we had that as the tract of land that had he was keeping that.
Oh, the hops, that are keeping the front section of hops on 72 is also owns and is planning to keep that piece there.
Yeah, we're not taking that.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the idea of this property was to continue the hop, but I don't think that market hop.
Okay, so no plans for the golf course to purchase that piece or
No,
develop
no,
that piece?
not at
Okay.
all.
And then you said about 200 members, but that seems like a lot of housing for 200 people to use within a year. But I don't know anything about golf. How long
Sure.
would they typically stay, or what would they be doing with those homes and that property when the members are not there?
They will be vacant because they are not a Airbnb. We are not set up. We don't have standalone resources inside those buildings. Those buildings will be fully dependent on what the clubhouse offers. So, so they will be vacant. They are for members only. And so if there's not a member on property that wants to, their only members will be allowed to stay in there, and obviously if they have a guest or something.
Yeah, as I was gonna say, if
Yeah.
it's not like a timeshare thing where you can just let your family go and you're not
Nothing
there,
like
the member
that.
has to be present.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing
So it
like
will
that.
be members and their guests.
Yeah,
So you may have 200 members, but each member can bring 3 friends on the basis of foursome.
right.
So you may have 4 of those units taken up by one group, one member.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
his accompanying individuals.
I'm gonna maybe enter that
Upon
world
occasion?
just a little bit with you, is
Go
that
ahead.
Kingsley Club is, I don't know if you've heard of Kingsley Club. It's in Mayfield Township. It's been around for several years. I believe Isaiah Thomas was one of the original, the basketball guy, was one of the original, but that is a exclusive, kind of comparable to what this is. And one of the things that drives membership to courses like this at these levels is that I can show up and I can be guaranteed I'm gonna get on the golf course. So that's what the limited membership really does and provides that luxury to those members. So with that, the idea with the housing isn't to burden the golf course by any means, because it just won't happen that way. So.
I'll pass it to Rachel.
Yeah.
That's all I wrote down.
Yeah.
I was just
For now.
piggybacking off of your question.
I would assume that you're gonna pave the rest of Moore Road to the new driveway, is that?
That has not been discussed. We've had discussions with the town, with the road commission, and that has never been brought up. So,
I know when they built the original golf course, the road commission made them pave Arnold Road, because that was a gravel road at the time.
was it? Yeah. Yeah, that has not been discussed at all, so.
Did you have anything else?
He's
I'm
doing a
gonna
good job.
piggyback off of his again.
Yeah, no worries.
You're hitting my list.
No.
The road commission has not brought it up. Have the developers put any thought or consideration into having a traffic study and or the potential of paving Moore Road? Moore Road is a dirt road it has just recently had
Mhm.
some jump in traffic due to the glamping campground.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Yeah, we
quite
noticed that.
adjacent to you.
Yep.
One of the things they did with their special use permit was they offered both for the comfort of their guests and their neighbors, they're providing 2 additional brinings every year
Okay.
on that road to keep because it can get
Mhm.
vicious.
Yeah.
So they get an extra grading and brining, 2 extra grading and brinings per
Mhm.
year. I'm looking at the project, like Mike said, and not seeing your clientele as being compatible with the condition of that road. To put it bluntly.
So I challenge you as a planning commission to go find Kingsley Club.
It's hard.
Go find Kingsley Club and tell me what roads you're on. I really do. I challenge you.
Okay.
I mean, it's not, I'm not joking.
If they're not taking the shuttle bus, I wouldn't drive my Lamborghini down that road.
Well,
So.
anyway, I got your point, and
Yeah.
but it's interesting that, you know, you say that the clientele may not, but they do. And that's the
Okay.
thing is I think there must be a little prestige of coming out of there with some mud on your car. But whatever, it's an interesting drive to go to Kingsley Club. And I do challenge you to go find it. It's
So
a
you
bait-
take the Hummer, not the Lamborghini.
It's not bad. It's not
Okay.
bad. But you know, to piggyback on what you said about them, we would participate with them or do additional grading if there was some, you know,
Okay.
opportunities for that. My concern with paving all the way out there, and I'm guessing they probably ran into something similar if that discussion came up, is that a lot of section of that road is not conducive to road commission standards as far as ditching and so forth. It comes up over, there's quite a big, you know, cut and stuff. So definitely something we can talk about. I don't know if that would be something we would be interested in participating in 100% if paving was a requirement. But it would be something like if there's some things we could participate in, we would do that.
Okay. I just see that as probably the most of the input I've gotten so far,
Sure.
and just my evaluation and knowledge of the township. I see that as being the most significant concern
Yeah,
I expect to see about your project
got it.
is the section of dirt road there, as well as the fact that Moore Road, basically you're accessing, if you're accessing on Moore Road, you're accessing through our industrial district.
Mhm.
And the obvious, as a local, the best way to get onto M72 is to avoid Moore Road.
Yeah.
You're gonna go over to Arnold or over to Williamsburg Road,
Yeah.
because especially if you're making a left-hand turn off of Moore, it's a blind hill
Yeah,
and you're gonna be parked for a while.
right.
And you have a traffic light on Williamsburg and you have a clear sight distance on Arnold.
Yeah.
Making either of those a better option.
Mhm.
So I think we'll have to have some discussion, but there has not been a road study. I didn't see it in here. I'm assuming
Nope.
there has not actually been a road study done.
No, is there some preference for something like that? Or is that not necessary?
I assume it would be your preference because of the clientele, but.
Yeah. No,
uh,
it's,
I understand.
Yeah.
People come here for that backwoods or more
Mhm.
country type feel.
Yeah.
I know that.
mhm.
Even with the 60 employees, I believe it was seasonally.
Yeah, keep in mind, there's a bunch that are over at the maintenance building, a bunch of those.
Okay, yeah, so a
they're-
lot of that
yeah.
may be accessing off of Bates as
Yeah.
opposed.
Mhm.
But any of your kitchen staff, your
Mhm.
cleaning staff, or the
Yeah.
your caddies, all of that are going to be accessing likely off of Moore Road.
Yeah.
That's a significant impact around here compared to our normal traffic,
So that 60,
potentially.
that 60 number is a very small peak during the season, because you got to figure that golf is over in October, and then you know, I figure we're gonna have to plow the roads for fire purposes going up there. So I mean, the hit is a very short duration.
Well, it's
In that,
but it's hitting at the same time that everybody else does.
Yeah. And then that
So-
that 60 employees is like different shifts and different,
Mhm.
so it's not. So I don't know what that number is.
But it's a,
Mhm.
that's what I'm looking at as a local.
Yeah.
That's a
Kim,
jump for local.
I'm looking
Carl,
at,
you're up.
I'm looking at exactly the opposite. Are we gonna stop all development in our township because of crummy roads? We need in our master plan, one of the top priorities is improving our roads. Now, we can't do it all at once, but we're gonna say, oh, we got a crummy road in that area and we don't want you. That's ridiculous. We need to improve the roads, period. And this is a good opportunity where we can have, possibly good development come in and we say, oh, we don't want it because we got a crummy road. Fix the road.
Well, and I was really talking more about planning on fixing the road, not anything that would stop a project or development. Just that may be something we need to plan for, like we did with Evinus Campground, where he added the extra brinings to reduce some of the impact on the neighboring properties.
I can run graders, so I can.
You've got the equipment.
I don't, but I run it. I can run
Yes. All right. I had a couple other questions, but Carl, you want to go next? Do you have
No,
anything you're looking at?
I just initially I look at the use of that property and this seems to fall into what our master plan has for limited development. This is an upscale the project and they were talking about quite a few jobs being available. Yeah, just have to continue on looking at all of the things going to be involved and hear additional comments.
Okay. Couple of questions I had. What are the prospects in terms of special events, conferences? Are you looking at any major events, or is this specifically designed to avoid those,
It's specifically designed to-
weddings,
Yeah, it is
golf
not that.
competitions, those
It's-
type of things?
I would ask you for an event center if that's what we were doing. We are not asking for an event center. What we would do is a course like this has a lot of prestige, we're hoping, is that on occasion there would be local fundraisers with the course where people could pay to a donation to be able to play the course. And so that can generate some pretty big interest pretty quick from the golf community. So we may have events like that, but that is actually kind of typical from a golf course perspective. And I've seen it done and it's good for the community. So it's those opportunities that we'd be most looking for. We're not here to ask you for a PGA event. They probably,
Just wondering if that's just a
the
few years
stair
down the
step,
road.
right? Yeah,
if you're gonna have a top 100 course, if you're gonna have a top
Yeah.
10 course, I would think that there would be
yeah,
maybe a long-term planning to
right.
hope to get there, even if you aren't now.
Some of those courses, I don't know.
Okay.
The people that are doing this are passionate about the golf game and not about the notoriety or that stuff. So I will go on record and saying at this time if we do, we will come back to you. But and I would even suspect if we did that community effort, we would probably come back for a special event type thing but it still may not be that many people actually.
Mhm.
So.
Okay. And then you did discuss the standards in terms of the understanding that the accessory uses you are incorporating into this are, yes, not uncommon for a golf course, but would not be allowed without the golf course.
Exactly.
I did have one concern on your blueprint.
Yeah.
And it's not, I can't necessarily pin down the exact amount, but because there's a scale, but it's,
Yeah.
it gives you a ballpark.
Right.
And that would be your cabins in the northeast corner
Mm-hmm.
of the facility, not the lodges, but the cabins.
Cabins, yeah.
What is the distance of those cabins from the proposed distance from the lot line? Now, we don't have immediate adjacent neighboring homes
No.
right there.
Yeah.
But if this wasn't a golf course,
Mhm.
our standard would be 100 under commercial campgrounds. That's what I found to be our closest
Hmm.
comparable ordinance would be this would be a commercial campground. Those are
Yeah.
some cabins. And they would need to be 100 feet from the lot line. I'm ballparking them at 65, 75.
You're probably right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I don't know if the rest of the planning commission has any concerns. That was the only
Yeah.
point on the print
Yeah.
that I was wondering about maybe being a little too close to private property. And that is also one of the only places you actually abut private property.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to acknowledging and making an adjustment to that. I mean, that is something I could probably, move some stuff around to get that distance. I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be a deal killer in this scheme of 300 acres.
Randy, you look like you have some thoughts.
I have some thoughts.
I will pass it on.
I think it's important to kind of frame the conversation about where we are in the approval process here. We are here tonight to look at preliminary
Mhm.
site plan review
Yeah.
approval, correct? I mean,
Mhm.
and you're aware of the ordinance, so,
Mhm.
so you're no doubt seeing the rest of the requirements in the site plan process. So you don't really have detailed design yet for the buildings, as mentioned. You don't have an architect and all that. So
Yeah.
that's all to come once you receive approval tonight to basically go forward then.
Let me see. Can you help me with this? We're in a process with the purchase agreement where we would like to move forward with the purchase, and without some semblance of happiness of the project in total, we wouldn't do that effort. So that kind of goes along the same lines as the architectural, is that's a big animal. I mean, they're going to make a beautiful facility. I know they're going to spend a lot of money with the architect. So to come up with some renderings would be eyewash if we came up with that, because that's not what where we're at. So if there's any way that this planning commission can help us get to a point where we can pay the fee for the property, we'll move in that process, and we'll be happy to come back and and show you those buildings.
You're looking at, can we do it?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. Will this planning commission approve us? We would like to get approval on the concept plan and get us moving. So.
Well, and I guess that's where I see the planning commission as our questions are, is this allowed in the ordinance? Is there any additional information that we need? And any concerns that we have, even if it isn't laid out, I'd rather have the developers know upfront, hey, is there a way this can be moved over a little? Is there a little more buffer we can put in this area, that area, et cetera?
So the ordinance pretty well spells out everything you need to provide to us to get to the regular site plan review process. So
Yeah.
and you've looked at it, of course. And
And I think the only thing that I'm struggling with is the building elevations.
Okay.
And
Just a quick question on the building though. Is that one story or two,
Yeah.
or don't you
It'd be
know?
one story with a walkout,
Okay,
and the underground is probably gonna be some cart
Oh.
storage.
okay.
So that'll all be rated.
So it's not necessarily habitable space underneath there, underneath the
No.
building. And then I guess to echo some of the concerns about the traffic flow here, I guess, the concern would be delivery trucks as well as the individual patrons.
Yeah.
You're going to have some deliveries, of course, of food and supplies and things like that. And the condition of more road suggests, that there's some issues to talk about there if you're going to have trucks going up and down it.
Okay.
And then I guess I'm curious, just given that this is split between Whitewater and Acme, where do you stand with the soil erosion permitting and wetlands and all that?
So the wet
issues.
So what we've done, and I'm probably going to just do it here too, is soil erosion. We've got a preliminary, they reviewed, and we don't have a permit because it'll expire before we get rolling. But we've already engaged them, and they've written us a letter saying they're okay with what we're proposing. Don't see any issues with that. That goes with the health department. We have that from the road commission and the fire department on the maintenance building so far, because we don't have
Was that on the whole project? Did you submit the whole project to the county as far as?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep. So they would be able to issue us updated letters, whatever, but we won't go through permitting until we're through. Those all sunset.
I think that's it for me right now.
In the road coming up, I intend to have concrete curb. We'll have some trees going up. You know, it'll tuck in pretty quick. You won't see it from the road once we get off there. I do illustrate a little bit in one of the drawings. I think I had the driveway design where we're kind of cut the slope back, do some retaining wall, but it is, you know, it's a big hill. So, but,
That's asphalt of some type, right? And,
yeah, asphalt,
and,
yep. Yep. And then I'll have, I was telling Bob this too, we'll have storm structures routinely down through the section that's heading down towards more, more road. And then we'll do some underground infiltration systems there. So, you know, periodically down through the hill. So.
Well, we haven't looked at this much, obviously, we just got
Yeah,
it, but is the, where does the bulk of the drainage go?
It's split. There's if you look, there's a detail of the drain of the road. It actually comes up, sags, and goes back down. So there's actually a basin. And then it stretches when it's some intermediate drainage areas too.
Well, I guess just to reiterate one last point that was mentioned earlier, you're okay with the condition that the cabins and the accommodations are all tied to the golf course, and so is the hotel or the restaurant. Those are not standalone.
Yeah, and
facilities.
we use the term restaurant, but it's not truly, you know, like bar restaurant type thing. But yeah, all that stuff is no longer a useful item. I think you guys are require 9 holes. It's in your ordinance. A golf course is 9 holes or more or something like that. So, but we fully understand that this is non-usable amenities at that time. So.
Yeah, I don't think we have any provision. Our ordinance just says a golf course.
I know.
And I think it's 3 words long.
Dot.
Yes, a golf course.
Yes.
And I think we can all agree this is a golf course.
Yeah.
So. Okay, I guess, anybody else have questions that have come up through our discussion? Your comment that this really isn't a restaurant is this is more of a clubhouse?
Yeah.
That, you know, members clubhouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm assuming the restaurant also won't be open to the public.
Right. And I think there'll be a commercial
Typically.
kitchen, you know, but it's going to be very casual seating and so forth. So.
So it will be members and their guests.
Yeah.
Okay. Carl, did you have another question?
No, I'm
Okay.
so far I'm impressed.
Just clearing your throat. Okay.
What do you guys foresee as the process from here for me to
Um,
get this done?
I think we need to discuss it here a minute
Sure.
and let Bob weigh in. Bob, do you have anything you feel
I just
you should
want
add?
to make a couple quick comments, and for the benefit of the planning commission, and for the benefit of Randy, not to be a hard-nosed zoning administrator, but the zoning ordinance is what the zoning ordinance is. And I typically, when I engage with applicants or their representatives, like Scott, the preliminary standards are pretty much next to nothing, and he's almost come as close to a final as you can. But I also advise him, and I'll advise you, and I tell Randy, when applicants present their final site plan, I say, here's our ordinance. Here's what's required to be on the site plan. Here are the site plan review standards. I ask the applicant to include in their packet their narrative. How do you think you meet these standards? Because it's the planning commission that you're convincing that you meet those standards, and use it like a checklist. You know, Whitewater Township zoning ordinance of the many that I've dealt with, I don't want to say it's complicated, but the more discretion you give yourself, the harder it makes your job, because, you know, that's supposed to be reserved for special uses. We have a lot of discretionary standards, but it's within your authority to, on behalf of the township, make sure that this is harmonious and compatible, the site plan fits in. If they meet your site plan review standards, the statute clearly states you shall approve it. Simple as that. Again, it's an opportunity to engage the applicant. They have a little bit of work to do on the site plan to bring it back for a final and prepare a narrative. I would ask, because it sounds like they're ready to move. They're far along in the process. They're about that 99.5% mark with Acme. I would encourage you to read some of Acme Township's minutes, by the way, on their review of this golf course. They make it a special use. And I think by the time Scott got here, he addressed some of those issues in the big packet that he put together with the turf and the limited maintenance and the fertilizer, because they have done soil borings and testings, and they know where the water table is, and they're aware of the impact that certain fertilizers have or do not have on the environment. So yes, I would appreciate if the Planning Commission would consider them an agenda item at their December meeting, so they could bring back a final site plan if that's what the applicant desires.
Okay.
I could just expand on that for a moment, though.
Go
I
ahead.
agree with the idea of having them try to respond to all the issues in your ordinance. At the end of the day, it's your ordinance that guides, you know, the action on this. And as soon as they can get a final site plan to us, the better. Whether there's, you know, depending upon when we get that and how much time the Planning Commission has to review it, I would expect to see, you know, quite a bit more information than what's in front of you. And they may have done a whole lot more work, but we've not seen it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
And I think part of that is this is preliminary. Is what we're proposing legal?
Right. And
Is
that's
our
the issue
fundamental
tonight.
question this evening.
Right. That's the issue tonight.
Because we can't expect anyone to put in the expense that it takes, like you said, that for a full workup on a clubhouse. It's a significant, just the blueprint is a significant expenditure of funds. So I think what we need to do as a planning commission is move forward on, do we have any issues in the legality? And I'll put that out right now. Does anybody have any questions about whether or not golf course, as this is proposed with its amenities, is allowed within our ordinance?
No, I think it's pretty clear that it is.
Okay, Rachel, any concerns?
Not out of my limited knowledge.
Okay, Carl?
No,
Okay.
no concerns.
And the same here. What I would like to do is, as we're passing on a preliminary approval, I think we've gotten that far. Any concerns that we would like to ensure that they address between now and their final, whether it's next month or January. The two that I caught in discussion, I pointed out the distance, and it's not a big thing. I will put it out to the rest of you. I mentioned moving the cabins and giving a little bit more buffer. 65 feet is a pretty good setback, but should we be looking and asking them to be closer to what the closest standard we have to what they're doing? If this wasn't a golf course, it would be 100 feet. Do we want to ask them to see if it's possible for them to get those cabins 100 feet from their lot line? Is that an additional standard or request that we would like to see in their final print?
What is the current standard for a golf course? What is the setback?
We have no setback requirement at all for a golf course, but we do for a cabin. Yes, for the structures, but for a golf hole, no.
Oh.
I guess, so the
Well, if we have-
structures,
Do we have a setback standard for the structure?
it depends. The closest I equate this to would be a commercial campground. And that would have a 100-foot buffer. If you evaluate it as a single family home or a duplex, then it would just be the standard setback from a lot line. So how are we looking at it would be what we're looking at. This is being approved as a golf course. Everything is being approved as an accessory to a golf course. But if this wasn't a golf course, a cabin, a commercial, a cabin in a commercial campground would have to be 100 feet from the lot line with our current ordinance.
But it is a golf course.
But it is a golf course.
I'd leave it alone.
So, okay.
I agree with Carl. These are amenities to the golf course that they're talking about putting on there, and they're calling it a cabin, but it's right along with the other units that are for their members only.
Mhm.
It's not for commercial use to the public. And this, 65 feet ish or whatever it happens to be exactly is a pretty good setback. So I agree with Carl. I think it's fine the way it is, because it isn't a campground and it is a golf course, and that is allowed.
That's not going to be the general public.
So I
Rachel,
see,
where are you at?
I see both the logics, but for me, I need time to digest it, and I'd actually like to walk over there and look
Okay.
at it myself. So I'm gonna go as a no opinion at the moment.
Okay. So I don't know how much that helps you on that one. But we don't have 3 people, of our 4, we need 3 of us saying that that's a condition. But I think you can hear that that's a point of concern. And if there's any way that they can be moved a little bit more instead and not a little bit less,
Yeah.
that would be preferable.
To Rachel's point, I'd be more than happy to entertain an option where we do meet on site. I do have a GPS system where I can show you where everything's gonna be,
Okay.
where we can stand there. And I'm sure some of you have some side by sides. I have one. We can, check out the property that way.
Okay.
So if that is something you want to put together, or if it's a one-on-one, I don't know. I
Okay.
don't want to get into legalities on that, so.
And I would
So,
suggest,
I'm sorry,
Go
I'll
ahead,
just
Randy.
interrupt, just in the interest of trying to protect communication outside the meeting, I would suggest if there's going to be planning commission members going out to the site, that there being more than 2,
Mhm.
so that you don't have a quorum or 3.
well, it would be no more than 3,
Okay,
because our
so-
board is 7.
Am I allowed to just go by myself?
You're-
Just,
Oh,
I guarantee you won't know what you're looking
no, I won't.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can go, but it'll just be another tree.
right.
Okay, okay.
But if any of the PC members would like to do so, I'm gonna throw it out there. Please contact Bob.
Okay.
And Bob could facilitate contact and or arranging if you want to do a formal tour. Does that work for you, Bob?
That works for me.
All right.
I just want to say one final comment. I get nervous when I hear people say conditions related to site plan reviews. Site plan reviews have standards. And when I hear you talking about the setbacks, I get extremely nervous. Even though you have discretionary authority on some of the standards, if you're going to impose a condition to mitigate that concern, you need to relate it right back to the ordinance. And when I go back to the ordinance, I find that it's in the A1 agricultural zoning district, and the A1 agricultural zoning district tells you what the setbacks are. So I would see the planning commission have a difficult time imposing more stringent standards than what are in the underlying zoning district there.
So you would take that as a lot line setback of 15 feet,
Yes.
like a residential home? Okay.
But
All
in
right.
and of itself, a conditional approval for a site plan is allowed under the zoning enabling act. So there can be certain conditions,
Yep.
just not, I'm not sure I'm comfortable either picking and choosing standards from other parts of the ordinance and
Mhm.
trying to apply it. But I think your concern is understood, though.
Yeah, so it's not a condition. Even by vote, it would not be a condition. The other item that we discussed was a road study. That I do see as something that we could put forward as something we would expect to see it is discretionary in our zoning ordinance. I would feel that it would be appropriate for this project. So I'll put mine out there. That was the other of the 2 items that I saw that we have discussed.
I would agree with that.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a road study, and
Okay. And Carl?
Conversation.
Explain that to me a little more. I didn't
Um,
quite catch you.
If we're giving them a preliminary approval, which is
Yeah.
saying, yes, this project in its
Mhm.
basic concept, we agree that it's legal and they're allowed to do it. Then any specifics that we would look at in their final site plan review, now would be the time to tell them if there's anything specific we expect to see accompanying that review. And the question is, do we want to ask to see a traffic study submitted with their final review, their final site plan proposal?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for two reasons. Well, mainly one, for the future of that road. Because they're there, we have the other campground, and that road's gonna have to be improved. Just because of the way that the township's going. There's other roads that are gonna need. So we need to know what's gonna be required.
And if there's something that the study determines is of concern, it doesn't even mean the paving would be the solution. It might be restricting commercial traffic to more road. It might be something which would seem almost logical for a driver anyway. But Bob, I read the ordinance as that being within our purview for our site plan review for a final review. Am I mistaken that we could ask for a traffic study to be included in their final site plan review?
Be acceptable and
Okay.
reasonable. It's always nice to justify why you're asking for that, so the applicant has a idea of what you're going for. As he's expressing, the number of members.
Mhm.
Are you expecting an increased traffic count at certain times of the day?
We're expecting an increased traffic time certain times of the year.
I don't know.
Basically, sun through sun.
Yeah.
So I have no problem adhering to that.
Okay.
What I do is I pick up the phone, I call a traffic engineer, and then I say, I need a traffic study.
Mhm.
And then I get peppered with,
Yeah,
all
all the
the
questions.
nuances. Is your concern for the number of additional trips that will be generating? Is it the number of trips that are generated in whole? I mean, I'm trying to figure out.
It would be both, and I'll put this out to everybody. I would say we're concerned with the overall traffic increase of trucks, supplies, employees. We understand that guests is probably going to be the smallest of those numbers from your description. And one of the biggest concerns is the fact that we are looking at, it does not matter what route you take, north, south, east, or west, it's dirt. So it is a dirt road that is, I'm sure your owners and your developers both have traveled most of the adjacent roads, but at any given time, it's either bad or horrid.
Yeah.
Those are your two options.
And
Unless you're following the plow truck at a nice distance, it's not going to be in good condition.
right. And having lived here a long time myself, I know that when the roads start to take that turn is usually in the spring and in the,
Mhm.
in the fall too. But
Or any time that's in
then-
between.
And then the chatter
Two
and the
brines.
dust is, the chatter and the dust is the other item
The
with
nuisance.
respect to, so then,
Yes.
that there again, we would participate and stuff. So
Okay.
I think I got enough. If I need clarification, is there a way to maybe bounce it off of you individually?
I would leave that up to Bob.
I'd
I
like to
saw
weigh in
him
on
just
that as well, if we could.
Okay.
To document in the minutes exactly what they're looking for. What
Okay.
their concerns are, because he's right. He needs to know,
Okay.
because I've seen traffic studies that are pages and pages long, and if you don't tell him exactly what you want, so he can narrow it down.
And some that say,
Yeah.
sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay, and I will, I'm going to pass it off to Randy before we get back to Bob's request.
Okay, well, I'm going to say exactly the
Go
same
ahead.
thing. Saying a traffic study is just a nebulous kind of concept. I can appreciate the concern of not knowing what to tell a traffic engineer when you say I want to study. What does that really mean? I think the concern is obviously traffic generation coming off of this, something that's attributable to the actual utilization of the facility.
Yeah.
Times a day, peak
Yep.
travel, peak trips coming in and
Mhm.
out, and direction too. Is it?
Right, that's usually what they'll ask is which intersection you want us to study. So I wondered if we just studied the crisp Moore Road intersection for the most part, where you do trips through that intersection. where it
Has
could be
the
measurable.
planning gone far enough to understand where you're likely to bring your guests in? Are they coming in principally from 72 or are they going to come supply, or are they going to Williamsburg Road? I guess there's probably several places that they
I would
could be
say
routed.
several. I would, I don't, knowing, I guess very rare, I would suspect that people would come down Williamsburg, do the supply road route.
Well, if they're coming from the airport, that might be
I
Yeah,
can
think
speak to
they'll be-
that.
What do you think?
It is, there's 2 miles difference
Yeah,
taking M72 versus Williamsburg Road, and it is a dead heat, point for point, the
Yeah.
exact same travel time.
and if,
In that I live near the airport and we've
Yeah.
solved arguments. You go this way, I'll go that way, and it takes exactly the same amount of time. So it's really a matter of preference
yeah,
of whether you want to take your guests through the woods and have the scenic
Right,
woods
right.
trip or around the bay.
yeah.
I could see drivers doing either.
Maybe odd days, even days.
Yeah, but either way, how they're coming in, if they're
Right.
coming on Williamsburg Road, they're gonna cut across
Yeah.
on Crisp in all likelihood. And if they're coming M72, they're probably gonna go all the way to Moore.
Mhm.
It will vary when they're exiting
Yeah.
more.
So I think what we'll do is I'll
So
have
that
a discussion
intersection.
with them, and then maybe we do a study at Moore and Crisp.
Something that would indicate, and weigh in, please, folks,
Well,
something that would indicate whether our traffic, especially exiting, I think is the bigger issue, whether our traffic is going to be cutting over to Arnold, cutting over to Williamsburg Road, or
Mhm.
coming down Moore,
Mhm.
so that we know the local impact on those dirt roads, in that Moore Road's the most forgiving
Yeah.
in that it's paved.
And I'll reach out to Road Commission because they do have some stuff on
Mhm.
file that the traffic engineer usually can get started with.
Yeah.
So I'll have some more
Yeah.
discussions. with them.
Rachel?
I would say living there, you're least likely to use more to turn left.
Yeah.
As she was saying,
Yeah.
so probably coming in, that's gonna be your normal route, but
Right.
leaving, it's probably not. So
Yeah.
I would guess you're gonna go to Arnold
Mhm.
unless you want the light at Williamsburg.
Or Williamsburg Road because of the light.
Yeah,
So
I don't see
seasonally
us
that could vary.
trekking Crisp
backwards.
Arnold. I don't
You
really
don't
see
see
that.
Arnold?
No, I don't see that. I mean, just the trekking I've done around, it just seems like a lot of, I would just wait at the Moore Road intersection for a little longer. I know it's
Yeah,
tough.
but
I've been to the
that's
John Deere dealership
dangerous
enough.
right
That,
Yeah,
that might be true of your shuttle buses and
Yeah.
the
right.
vehicles that you have control over. The
Mhm.
individuals will learn very quickly to avoid Moore Road if they
Got
can.
it. Okay.
So you will, I think your traffic study would find that that might be the current pattern, but they will hit Arnold or
Okay.
locals avoid it.
I will look at pulling the cabins off just because, and then pulling the cabins further, and then we'll do the road study. And then I'm gonna go down our path of timing and trying to get some more of this stuff together.
Okay.
What I'm kind of wondering is, should we just now hit our pause button with your decision today for us to go back and do final even buildings and stuff like that? I don't know how comfortable we would be with, I think we're comfortable with your decision that the uses can all exist on there.
Okay.
And then with that, we may take our time, to get the traffic engineer and stuff, so we can come back to you
Okay.
and be pretty robust with everything. So.
I will defer a little bit. Bob, do you feel we would be best served by giving them a formal preliminary approval? Or waiting until we have the additional information, essentially a final? I mean, I don't want to delay the project another month by weaseling a preliminary before we do the final, if the final is really the next thing they're gonna bring us.
Up to the applicant choice. I don't know what their timing is. I want to say personally, I'm never in a hurry. I'm more about getting it right, the first time. Preliminary is just that, a preliminary. You still can't give final approval until they satisfy the final site plan standards. The primary difference between the preliminary and the final is, for me, and if Randy's involved, is the timing involved in preparing the report. You really have no standards for a preliminary. There's no reporting. There's not a lot of
Right.
review to it. In the final, I have to go down that checklist too, to make sure that you have a complete final site plan and all the standards have been addressed.
So I'm feeling like we're better off giving them a preliminary with an expectation of things we're expecting to see accompanying your final.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I think that's the straw poll we took a moment ago. All right.
And if we can turn around, we're back next month to you. We're on the agenda, we get on the agenda.
If Bob
whatever.
says he
Yeah,
has
so
everything,
There's no action you need to take other than for us to.
if
hear
we
your
have the
terms.
preliminary, then you would be cleared to bring us your final.
Yeah,
Now, whether or not we feel that everything that we need to see is in your final
right. Mhm.
would be a determination we'd have to make at that time. And
Mhm.
Bob can certainly give you guidance in
Yeah, absolutely.
whether or not that looks like everything we need. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would entertain a motion. And it would be regarding preliminary approval for the proposed reconstruction of High Point Golf Course.
I'll make the proposal that we give them their preliminary approval with the condition that they bring back the things we've asked for.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion by Mike, a second by Carl to grant preliminary approval for the reestablishment of High Point Golf Course as presented. All right, and I would take roll call vote when ready. I think it's already been conveyed. That is a concern that we will be looking at when we evaluate their final. No, just the road study. The setback was just something brought up by one individual, so.
Darrell is absent.
Yes.
Keaton, absent. Magus,
Yes,
Steelman,
Yes.
Plummer, absent. Rubble.
Yes.
and motion passes. So, sir, you have your preliminary. Like there was any question, there are really very few standards for us to hold you to. But we look forward to seeing that reestablished. It was a loss when it was taken out to begin with, so. All right. And anyone that wants to take a closer look, contact Bob to set up a more specific evaluation of the property. Okay. All right. Next on our agenda. We are going to come back up to unfinished business. Okay, unfinished business A, update on the zoning ordinance amendments submitted to the board. Article 25, adult use marijuana, Articles 1, 12, and 14, which are preamble, setbacks, and waterfront property. Article 25, site plan and SUP, and medical marijuana. The site plan and special use permit has gone through the board, and that has been established and adopted as we proposed it, I believe, without amendment. So that is in effect currently. It is already passed its notice of publishing. The only thing I haven't seen is the actual copy. I don't know if that's been produced yet or not. Articles 25, the two on marijuana and the setbacks. To my knowledge, I have received no reports from the board that they have gone through that. They sent some of the stuff to the attorney for review, but they still have those 3 amendments, the 2 on marijuana and 1 on preamble, setbacks, and waterfront property in front of the board for their consideration. They've taken all of them up at some point. Just haven't completed anything with them. Resource material. It is my understanding that Ron has put a substantial amount of time into producing the zoning ordinance copies. I believe he is also doing the general ordinance copies from my discussions with him. And I don't know where things are at on getting us a copy of the policy and procedure and or employee handbooks. I would hope that those would all be coming with our copies of the zoning ordinance. Just so we don't have the he said, she said, you're supposed to have this many days, that many days, according to what this should theoretically, this would give us the how many days notice, how many, and the standards that we're supposed to be abiding by. Update on the citizen planner. The reports back that I've gotten were that Rachel and Carl both were enrolled. And Carl has his certificate. He knocked it out. I don't know how long it took you online, but I know how long it took me in person. It was not something I'd have done in a month.
I think it was 24 sessions. Is it? Probably an hour and a half overall. I think a couple of them was a little longer, some a little shorter, but yeah, it took a while.
So you're looking at a solid 36 hours of study time, if that was the average.
Yeah, no more than that.
Okay.
I had about 4 days where it was just raining all day long. So but after, I'd say after going through 2 of those chapters, I had to take a break and come back, and so you'd say about an hour and a half per session.
Okay.
I would say overall, because after a while, you just get a little.
It starts to blur together.
Yeah. But I would say another thing is that big thick packet I got when I first signed up for what's the name of it? The planning
and zoning guidebook.
Well, the big one.
Mhm.
That was very good because I got an awful lot of the same stuff out of that. So, but there was a few things that were different that I had to, work on. So,
Okay.
overall, that was good. Both of those, I thought, having done both of them, was very helpful.
So if we just have a little less sunshine and a few less kids, we've all set. Okay. Has anybody, Mike, have you started it?
No.
Okay. And
I have 2 episodes done of
Okay.
the 24.
hey,
That's a start.
That's a start.
Yeah. It's good.
And I don't know if Al or Alex have engaged in it. I know Heidi had said she was doing it, but I don't know if she's actually started the actual program. So we'll see. We'll check back again next month. Okay. And we'll get some updates on the things you garnered from the class when more people are into it. All right, the next item we have up, and I'm going to adjust the agenda right here, even though we're at the end, is we're at the end of our evening. So we can pick up going through condo regulations. We can give Randy 10 minutes on the master plan. We have about 10 minutes to spend on any one topic. We can work on condo regulations, campgrounds, or the master plan. I'm going to put it out to you folks. We might make it all the way through condos. I'm sure Randy can use up his 10 minutes on the master plan. We're probably going to have to go through our training again next month, any training that he provides on that when we have everybody else here.
I say we do whatever one we can actually finish. Or Brandy thinks we can finish if we can. And then I think we should do an extra meeting because We're a little behind.
That will be coming up.
Okay.
Randy, do you have any preference in that,
Well, I don't know. I guess, we put the material together so everyone can have a chance to review this, although the packet didn't come out till Friday, so you didn't have all that much time with it.
I think the condos is the closest, but.
The condos is a fairly simple, straightforward kind of material. If you've did everyone have a chance to look at it, by the way? Okay. So,
Would you be comfortable setting aside the master plan information and campgrounds
well,
until next month, until our next meeting, whenever that happens to be?
I'll leave that up to you. What do you want to do? Do you want to do a section, or do you want to do master plans, or what? I mean, we've got 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever we have.
Carl, what's your preference, master plan or condos?
Condos.
Okay, Rachel,
Sure, condos.
it looks like we're hitting condos.
I don't have-
So we'll spend a few minutes. I know I can't stay much this evening, so I'll just close that right up front. That's why I'm leaning towards not extra. I have a kid that will be stranded if I don't. If I go over too much. All right,
Okay, so we can manage our time
So-
better. Let's get into this here. So the,
page, just a second.
What page?
Page 24.
24.
And this is Randy's review of our condo guidelines based on the questions that Rachel and I put together for the, potentially for the attorney before Randy had they'd actually formalized his hiring.
so what you'll find
Go
here is a chart that basically breaks down what you looked at last month, together with some proposed zoning language that's in yellow, and then my comments and questions that follow that. But before I get into that, let me get into the issue about PUDs and condos and this whole discussion about the preference of one or the other. I think that helps frame what we're looking at here. The condominium form of development is an unfortunate term because it conjures up images of large buildings, high rises, condos, apartments, and it's not necessarily that. It is a typical suburban subdivision in some cases. In some cases, it's a manufactured home park. In other cases, it's even a single use that's divided up into different kinds of sub-uses within it. So there's a lot of different variations. It really, how we got into this, the state of Michigan, is a long and complicated story I won't get into, but just imagine it as a regular subdivision. That's one option of developing property where you're going to put a private road in, is to use the condominium regulations to do that. The other option is a planned unit development, and that's exactly that. It's an option. If you look at the actual article, it says the township encourages the use of planned unit developments as an alternative to conventional development. Conventional development equals condominium subdivisions or a platted subdivision. There's still some of those that are done, although not often. So this condominium stuff is confusing and it's misleading to some degree, but most of my review had to do with looking at the Condominium Act, which the state of Michigan passed, and there's a copy of it in there in case you can't sleep at night. You can look through that. I think I put that in there. No, I didn't, but you can easily look it up. So I was trying to make sure the terminology between condominium projects and condominium units and condominium lots are all consistent with what we have in the state law. For the most part, that's the majority of it. I want to draw your attention to a couple of areas that I think were more substantial. And it kind of goes back to the comment that Rachel and Kim had brought up earlier about potentially, that's on page 4 of the chart, adding additional items
Do
for
you have
these.
this, just a minute, do you have the page number in our packet?
I don't.
Okay, it would be page 28. 28.12, is that the correct page?
Got it.
Consultation and general requirements?
No, it's on page 4 of my chart.
Okay, your chart didn't print off the way ours did. What is the location reference?
The heading.
the header,
Oh, 25. Oh, I'm sorry, 100.
I think he's on.
It says 11.2.
at the bottom,
Oh, 25.
page 25. Okay, 25 would be the first page of your,
Right, where there's red text.
okay,
Yes.
all right, we're there.
So it said add an additional line item for condominium complex, the site condominium, these terms that are somehow thrown around.
Mhm.
So what was missing was the site condominium subdivision, which is expressed in yellow. And that is again, added to the potential language, proposed language, to clarify that a site condominium is in fact what we're talking about in these potential developments. Probably the most significant thing to draw your attention to is on page 31.
Okay.
Here with regard to private roads. For the most part, you're going to find condominium subdivisions or site condos, whatever term you are drawn to, as being built with private roads. And there was no connection between the township's private road ordinance.
There's a reason for that.
I learned about that
That was,
today.
that was an intentional omission
Why?
because we don't have one.
Oh.
So that's why it was taken out. It was removed in that the only thing that the township board could agree on was they didn't like the one we had. And despite 3 subcommittees and 3 versions, they could never agree on one that they did like, which left us without one. So we had left that standard off on purpose because we had nothing to refer to.
So that's pretty significant in my mind, in that. So if a development, a site condo is proposed, you have to have some specifications for how that private road is to be built.
But we don't.
Okay, well, that then leads you to think that it might be a 2-track, or it might be
It could be.
a snowmobile trail
It
or
could be.
whatever, because the township has no guidelines for how that road.
One of the other things that there was a consensus on was that private road standards should not be in the zoning ordinance. They should be done by general ordinance. And it was the board's purview and only the board could do it.
Okay,
So that's what we were left with.
Yeah, we fought this battle. so-
None of the above.
And
So what's
every,
next?
the
so
board,
You have to ask someone else because it's out of our,
yeah, it's out of our wheelhouse.
the planning commission developed a version and then actually 2 versions. And then it went to the board and the board created a subcommittee and we created a 3rd version and they rejected all of them.
Okay.
So
well,
we might have more luck.
well, I don't know how much luck I'm gonna have, but I guess I would have strong reservations about any condominium development that would be built without any standards. I mean, what
You can have
kind
all the
of-
reservations you want. Right now, we have no standard. So,
Okay.
I mean,
Then how
but-
can you approve a condominium subdivision?
how can you disapprove it? There's no standard they're not meeting. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be flippant. I fully understand the concern. But I also don't see any way that we can hold them to a standard we don't have. We can request that the board revisit the idea of setting a standard. And they have 3 good versions they could go back to, all of which were fully functional. In my opinion, I'm being familiar with them.
I have a question. Are there any acts, laws, or anything else that can be referenced or
Yes,
that can be utilized?
the fire department standards of suitable access for fire.
Oh, so
Um,
that's not.
that is the one that they deferred to was, well, the fire department standards will ensure that there is adequate and acceptable access to the property.
But
the fire ordinance does grant almost unlimited power to the fire chief to determine whether or not they feel a road is suitable
But the
for the
condominium,
development.
but the condominium.
That's
act-
it that I'm aware of.
The act doesn't have anything that you can refer back to or that you can use to uphold or not. I don't know. I'm asking anybody who knows. Do you know?
It seems like a bizarre situation to be in,
Yes.
that you basically would
We're working with what
basically
we're
let the
given.
fire chief design the road system for you in terms of fire truck access alone.
That was the discussion, was that, well, we still have the fire ordinance. And that's what's been used.
Well, I don't know how that gets solved tonight, but I think that's
Yes, I.
to ignore that and not
I
draw
know
that attention
exactly.
to that is. would
No,
be
I know,
criminal.
I knew exactly what you were referring to with that, but that was a line that we took out for that reason.
I thought I'd
um,
simply lost it or missed it,
Nope.
but
No.
it's worse than that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, very much
Yeah.
so.
And it would be literally, if they have 3 versions on the record, they could pick one and pass it, and they could have it by next week. If they so chose. As general ordinances, they move a lot faster. And I know the last version was Cheryl, I don't know if it's Walton or Goss now. Cheryl and myself and Denny Habadink, who was the ZA at the time, wrote the last version. And it essentially just took our existing private road ordinance and applied it only to condos and developments regulated by the state. Was how we were resolving the issue. But there were multiple options and approaches that were presented that they could fall back to any of those. But we understand and share your frustration.
It's not that we haven't tried.
No,
Yeah.
I just don't know how
Didn't know how bad it was. did
how
you?
that could possibly go forward, but
Yeah. And you could say, okay, then we should just stop on the condo ordinance. However, if we just stop on the condo ordinance, we still have what we currently have, which isn't, I guess, what it comes back to for me is do what we can and encourage others to do what they can and or should.
okay.
I was just
Anybody else?
gonna ask on that same kind of section number 16.
Yes.
It said significant vegetation includes all trees with a minimum trunk diameter of 18 inches at 4.5 feet. I just wondered where that came from, if that's from like the act or.
No, that just simply came from a thought about trying to preserve large trees on the site, and that
Kind of
could,
an
that number could be
industry standard.
different. Quite honestly, it's not anything. There's no magic planning journal that points you to 18 inches, but
Would it, on that one, would it be possible to add something unless contraindicated? Something to say, unless there's a reason the tree needs to be removed, because one of the things we do come across is our old sugar maples certainly qualify as a substantial tree, but as a whole, Whitewater Township's sugar maple population is at a
well,
dead and dying age.
so this is just asking them to identify that on the
Okay.
plan. It's not requiring a preservation of that.
It's not
tree.
requiring preservation, just identify.
That was my question.
Okay.
Is this could this be used to tell somebody they couldn't or had to cut trees on their land?
No, it's simply identifying larger tree
Okay.
species on the site, that if there is a way to preserve that on the site, they would probably, we should.
The-
A large
Well,
beech grove or something like
A
that.
comment I have about that is, every tree has its life cycle. And if you want to talk to some people on Ski Milk Point Road, we had a storm come through in 15, and there was a lot of trees that should have been harvested a long time ago, and they destroyed houses and cars and lives. And so,
True.
you know,
Not to
also-
mention the one last year.
right, yeah.
So
Well,
they-
since then,
took
every
out the
storm that
rest.
comes through takes out more because it's weak in the forest.
So they say they identify these, then what is the next step after that? We don't, I guess what's the purpose of identifying them if we don't have any ability to ask them to keep them or retain them or?
Well, in the site condo, there's limited authority to do that. If it was a planned unit development, you would, but not in this case. I think you could encourage them to do that, to bring in the information to the table is helpful just for the information's sake. But you could ask them to adjust a lot line to protect some trees perhaps, or something like that.
Okay, so that's, I just need to understand the why behind it. So I appreciate that.
I do too.
Yeah. Let me also back up to one other point I wanted to make
Yeah.
here with the whole condominium subdivision and planned unit development. Both of these cases are based upon the density that is allowed in the agricultural district, which is lots that are 1 acre in size. That's your minimum lot size in the agricultural district, 1 acre. So whether it's a condominium subdivision or a planned unit development, you're going to have essentially that amount of housing in that area. So it's the planned unit development gives you the opportunity to arrange those in ways that do provide for protection for significant environmental features, whether you're going to cluster them in an area to protect a woodlot or something like that. But in both scenarios, you're left with the same density, more or less, that you would have in both scenarios. So by calling it a condo subdivision, you're not suggesting that there's more density than there would be otherwise, because it's still zoned agricultural at the end of the day, which allows 1 acre lots. And I suspect that's going to be an issue in the master plan to bring up is that 1 acre appropriate for Whitewater Township? I don't know. And I can't answer that question. And only the residents and the planning commission can. But right now, that's what it is. It's 1 acre. So you could theoretically dot the whole agricultural district with 1 acre lots and be perfectly in conformance with the zoning ordinance. And whether it's a PUD or a condo subdivision almost doesn't matter because it's the same number of units. So kind of keep that in mind
Yeah.
as we're going through this.
It's good to know. Thank you.
So some of the other areas are just distinguishing lots and units, kind of really technical kind of adjustments, but I'd like to connect the local ordinance with the state law, so there's no question about the terminology we're using.
Question, I noticed in one spot you had removed the reference to 28 point ... and just said this ordinance. Is there any reason we can't do that with the other references as well?
No,
If it's 25 point whatever, can we just say Article 25 and not give the specific location?
Oh, we should, yeah.
Because, well, we typically have done that historically as we've been going through the ordinance, removing the exact location and just putting Article 25 so that it doesn't have that catastrophic
Right.
domino effect through the ordinance when we move something.
And the other thing you'll notice I did here was to not duplicate the same information that's in two places, because if you change it in one and then you're going to create a conflict, and it just.
Could we change the other references to?
Which other ones are you referring to?
1 second. I had a couple others highlighted. On page 29, under fee required, we have described in 28.12. And then on page 30, we have in section 25.11F. Could we drop those?
Yes.
And just anywhere it says that, can we
Article
drop it down to
25.
the article only? Okay, is that okay with the rest of the planning commission?
Sounds
Yeah,
logical to me.
makes
That's been our pattern to try to eliminate some of these issues.
So someday when we get the ordinance straightened up, completely, we would just do hyperlinks to
Yeah.
those. So you click on it and it'll take you right to that
Right.
section. But for now, that's probably a good way of dealing with it. So we don't have those conflicts. So you're familiar with, you see in a PDF, sometimes you click on it, it's highlighted, it takes you to that section. So you don't, when you're looking at it on the computer screen.
Okay, I had two small issues. Other than that, I thoroughly appreciated your work. It's what we've been asking for ages from the attorney is tell us what and why.
So this has not been reviewed by him, though?
No,
Just
this has
so-
not been reviewed by the attorney. Basically, whatever changes we want to make to your recommendations, then would go to the attorney
Okay.
before we do a public hearing. So I want to put it to the planning commission. Do you want to go through whatever issues we have and send that draft off to the attorney, or do we want to hit it again next month? The moratorium on condos is up the end of the year. So we're tight on time.
I'd rather do it now.
Okay. I had two items, one of which we've already discussed. Carl's okay with doing it now, Rachel? Are you okay with doing it now? Are
I
you
am.
comfortable enough with the draft?
I am, but I'm concerned about what Randy was saying about the roads. I mean,
Okay.
is that?
Let's hit that one first. On page 31, I would recommend a minor adjustment to what Randy has proposed, where it has private roads in a condominium subdivision shall comply with the specifications of this ordinance. Well, this ordinance or any other in the township doesn't have any specifications. So if we take out of this and replace it with any applicable ordinance, then if the board passes a private road ordinance, we already have it in ours saying they have to follow it. And the fire department ordinance would also cover this as an applicable ordinance. Would that
That makes
be
sense.
a halfway point?
I was assuming that there was an ordinance, but you tell me
Yeah, I
there
know.
isn't, so that
And I-
change is necessary then, given the absence of an
Okay.
ordinance.
Does that adjustment work for everybody?
Where are you at?
Page 31,
Okay.
item 14, in
Item-
Randy's column, the
Yep.
middle column, item 14,
Oh.
the very last line, instead of saying comply with the specifications of this ordinance, it would say comply with the specifications of any applicable ordinance.
Okay.
Just so that if we have an ordinance, they have to comply with it. Would that work? Okay, we have a consensus on that. And the other item, I think there was only one other item I had. The changing the notations to just indicate the article. Is everybody okay with that? That was my thing. I thought we had a
Yeah, no.
consensus
Yeah.
on that one as well. And the other one I had a question on was page 33 for everyone. And item number 3 in the yellow highlighted areas. We have each condominium dwelling unit shall be located within a condominium lot in a condominium development containing single-family detached dwelling units. Not more than one dwelling unit shall be located on a condominium lot. That could sound like saying that if the condo unit has a single family, everything has to be single family. And I think what we were going for was more, if it's designed as single family, you can't put something other than single family. Is that making sense to anyone?
That must be getting late because that-
So
No.
instead of saying
It's a
developments
mouthful.
containing single-family detached dwelling units, maybe changing containing to designed for single-family or approved for single-family units. My understanding is it was meant, and this was pointed out in the one in our current ordinance, it says that the condo has to be single-family. It doesn't. That was an error in the way it was read.
Yeah, that's part of the original language now. And
Yes,
so
so
it
it
was-
should really indicate that if it's only approved for single family, it should only, no one should be adding an accessory dwelling to it.
So continue to design for.
Well, or however else we want to get there, but it shouldn't be. It should be only indicating that if it's only approved for single family, it stays single family. But if it's approved for something other than single family, which many condominium developments can have a variety of uses, So where's everybody else at? Does designed for, replacing containing with designed for work, or do you have any other suggestions? I'm open for any way to get there.
Designed for works for me.
Rachel?
Well,
Does that work for
is
you?
it a single? I have a problem with that word designed for. What is it?
Or
What's on
approved
there?
for?
It's either a single family or it's not. It's not designed for it, but we built something else.
It's saying if it's designed for it, you can't build something else.
Well, then
Is what we're
I
trying to do.
have a problem with that. You didn't say it's a single family. You said, well, it was designed for it, but we put something else up. To me, that, I don't know, that wording bothers me. It's either is or it isn't.
Well, and that's what we're trying to get at.
Well, then don't say designed for,
Okay,
it is or it isn't. You know, you either can have a single unit or not, but you don't design it for one thing and then say, well, I put something else on, but it was really designed for one. but-
okay. Well, that would be in your condominium documents, whether or not the development was designed for single family, or was it designed for something other than
I
that?
don't-
There are plenty of stopgaps with
I know
stop
that
at the
this,
sanitarian's office. for-
the wording just bothers me a little, because I don't care what it was designed for, what's on there.
Well, it's under the heading of
It's a single
development
family
layout.
house, you can't have a single, another item on it. That's pretty clear to me.
Well, it's a trick because in our areas where you would likely have a condo development, the zoning district allows two family. But if your condo development is only designed for single family, you shouldn't be using the freedom of the zoning district to make it two family. Unless the development was designed for two family. And that comes down to the approvals with the sanitarian's office, water runoff, et cetera. Am I missing something, Randy? Okay,
All right.
so,
I'm not sure it's consequential, but
okay,
I think, I think it's under the heading of development layout and design. So either way, I'm fine. I think it's clearly about the design. But
or maybe even changing it to approved for. If it's approved for single family, it should only be single family. Would that be more appropriate,
I like
Carl? Okay. Does anybody else have a problem with that, changing it to approved for?
No.
Okay. Is there anything else? We've hit several topics. Is there anything else in the condo? Or with those three changes, are we ready to send this off to once Randy has gone through his draft and made those three changes, are we ready to send it to the attorney? We would still be looking at
I
it.
just got a couple questions and
Go for it.
on page 31 in 13, when I read that, it kind of confuses me at the end. It says, description of sanitary waste disposal system to be provided, implemented. Does that mean provided and implemented?
which page are you on?
31.
Description of water system of sanitary.
Yes, number
It,
13.
it seems like,
I
there's-
think you're right, because I think there's an and missing.
yeah, there's an and or something, it seems missing there. It's a little bit confusing to me, and I know I'm not the strongest reader, so that's why I'm just saying is,
Okay.
am I missing something or?
No, that's existing language. That's a little sloppy.
You're right. It's from the original. It's from the original Google.
As long as you're changing it, you might as well get it.
Yeah, add and.
good catch.
So you could just delete provided.
But yeah, just
That's,
delete plurality
that
and
was
just
my
go with
note,
implemented.
yeah, that was
That
my note
works.
too, yeah.
And then the same in 12.
Okay,
Just in water
Yeah, it would make it the
system
same as
provided.
12, exactly.
correct. And that was probably a typo. We changed provided to implemented and it didn't get removed. What else do you have, Mike?
On page 34, number 6, it says land subject to flooding or otherwise deemed by the township to be uninhabitable shall not be used for uses that may increase the danger to life, to health, life, or property. And when all the reading I've done, and I don't profess to be like the smartest guy in the room about any of this, but when we talk about zoning, I thought health, safety, and welfare were the things that we could make rules on. So I wonder, I guess I need somebody to help me through that, explain that to me. How do we get property in there?
And it's original language from
Yep.
the original adoption.
From Lindsay.
So I mean, I might be wrong about this, but it seems to me like that doesn't belong there.
I think it's in reference to the fact that we're dealing specifically with things that damage homes in terms of flooding. It was how I took it.
Yeah, I don't think flooding damages welfare necessarily as much as it would damage property.
It damages your welfare in that you lost property.
And that's all I was asking for, is just a little clarification there.
Does that, is it
Yeah.
close enough for you?
Yeah, well, I guess my concern is that this wording doesn't get us in trouble. That's all.
All right, we're after time and we need to get public comment. Are we at a point where we're comfortable with this, or do we need to take another run by it?
Can I ask one more quick
Yep, go
one?
for it.
Page 40, the yellow, it says condominium amendments, which I recorded. Should be my glasses again. Prior to the receipt of written township approval are null and void. Can you just talk me through that one, Randy, real quick? Help me understand that one.
If they were to amend the condominium plan
yeah.
or master deed without the township's approval, it's not valid.
Okay, but
If
it's
you
not,
change
if
the
it's
rules.
already on file, there's nothing,
There's nothing that would
they're
stop
not
an
changing
individual.
anything.
There's nothing that would stop an individual from going downtown and filing it. It's saying if someone goes down and files a
sorry.
change,
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time here.
okay.
Can you,
If someone, there's nothing that would stop me from going downtown and filing a change.
Right.
I don't have to have Bob's signature.
Okay.
But if I did that, it would be rendered null and void in court. Because I didn't seek the township's approval for the change first.
okay,
Am I missing anything,
No,
Randy?
that's
Okay.
right.
perfect. Thank you. Then I'm good.
Okay. So do we want to send this to the attorney, or do we want to take another run at it at an extra meeting, at the next meeting, et cetera?
I'm good with sending it to the attorney.
Randy?
Why not do both? Why not? I mean, it'll come back with any attorney's comments to the planning
Yes.
commission, right?
And we would make whatever adjustments we needed to
Right.
prior to public hearing.
Right.
So I think we're there with those few changes that were itemized.
Yep.
And I have notes on those too, Randy, if that helps, to make adjustments to your potential final draft. I would entertain a motion to forward the Article 28 as amended, the draft as amended to the township attorney for review and consultation. Do I have that?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Mike. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
I have a second from Rachel. Roll call vote when ready, Rachel. Or, sorry, Lois. Should teach me to write and talk at the same time. Going really quick.
Oh, yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Mangus.
Yes.
Robel,
Yes.
Keaton, Darrow, absent.
Okay, motion carries. I will work with Randy to get this tidied up and ready to send to the attorney for his input. He approved what we had before, so I can't imagine there could be much that he would have. Well, then again, you never. I should take that back and not jinx
Yes.
things. Okay. All right, and we will set aside the campgrounds and the master plan review education until our next meeting. Next meeting agenda will be on December 7th. Is anyone up for an additional meeting to catch up because we had so many members absent? I'm hesitant to do that in that if you go 2 weeks out, we're in the holidays. We've hit the holidays already.
I have a daughter coming into town for the latter part of the month. I get to see her like once every 3 or 4 years. I'm not missing any time with her that I can.
Can we start early at the next meeting? Is that a
Yes, you could.
possibility?
So Carl, would you be game for starting our next meeting at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock?
Sure.
That works the best for me, and that adds a half a meeting. That's a good compromise. All right, I am going to open it up for public comment. Starting in Zoom, do we have any public comment from Zoom? Okay, I'm going to open it up. Any public comment from Town Hall?
Connie Highmore. So it's really hard sitting in the audience listening and not being able to comment, obviously. I find it rather disturbing that it seems to be funny that we don't have a private road ordinance. You know, we found out about the private road ordinance being missing when it was listed somewhere else in the zoning book. And I couldn't find a private road ordinance, only to find out that's because it was in the general ordinance book. So I don't think that it's laughing that's necessary. I think being serious over something that is in the site condo plan about a private road needs to be addressed immediately. And I know that sounds like it's not in your ballpark and that you worked hard at it. But I think that if all of you on the planning commission go to the board in an email and said, something has got to be done. The citizens are standing at our podium and demanding that we fix this, and we can't do it. It's on you. Please fix it so we can move on. It's ridiculous that that's not there. Site condos are really tricky for me because when I read about site condos, they were created, if I understand correctly, they were created so that developers could make a subdivision, but not have to follow all the regulations and hard things that subdivisions demand. And that they can do things a little easier. There's less hoops to jump through. I can't understand why anyone would want to own a site condo and not own the land that their home is built on. If you don't own the land, so you have a $700,000 home, you don't own the property your house sits on. I don't get it. I also, with all due respect, think that there is a conflict of interest with the chairperson who owns site condos. I'm sorry. I believe that when I sit back here and listen to your suggestions for amendments to the condominium article, and I have to think to myself, is that making it easier for her site? Is she making a change there because it's going to make it easier for her? I'm sorry. I just feel like that's a conflict of interest. We don't talk about that. We've brought it up. I've heard it in this room before. I respectfully ask this room to think about that. Is there a conflict of interest there? I believe that there is. Thank you.
Okay, additional.
Vicki Beam, resident of Whitewater Township. Kim, you shook your head about going to the board when Connie just made that comment. There's a board that's listening. Please don't give up. Take some suggestions. I can promise you that I'm going to be writing a letter after what I've heard. I can definitely say I agree with every single word that just came out of Connie's mouth. And I agree. We've said it before. Take the doubt out of people's minds and maybe excuse yourself from being part of what's going on with site condos. Going back to the golf course, it was mentioned there are very few standards for a golf course. We should have them. This is what is getting us into the problems that we're in right now. There was no mention about what about golf balls going on people's property. People are going to follow along with it to find their golf balls. I don't know if you were paying attention to that, but we've been begging about having our ordinances in place to protect us, protect all of us. I echo, and Rachel said this again tonight, Moore Road is a huge concern. They can sit here and say everything they did. It's dangerous. I know that Bates is not part of Whitewater Township, but we have the horse show. Now listening tonight, they're going to have a whole bunch of cars coming out the other direction on Bates. There's going to be however many accidents there. So I think that's something, I'm glad you guys talked about the road study, very important. I agree with Connie. I wrote the same thing, this private road, this isn't a joke. There shouldn't be any laughing going on when we're talking about that. There should be no condo going forward without some sort of private road ordinance in place. There's just no excuse for that. We're talking about maybe having a site condo that you said, yes, there could be a 2-track. It's just plain ridiculous. How can you put a private road in without an ordinance? Once again, tonight, questions were asked of Randy. He didn't even get to finish. Kim took over yet again. Why do we have Randy here if we're not going to listen to what he's been hired to do? I don't know how much we're paying overall, but let's get our money's worth. Everything that he put out for this package was impressive. And again, I just ask you to take the time to look at this. There should be a private road in place. And all of you take the suggestion Connie did. I'm certainly going to write to the board. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other public comment?
I actually have one other, sorry, I meant to say this.
Can you make it very quick?
I can.
You're out of time.
There was a whole lot of time spent on the golf course, and when it had something to do with the residents of the township, we were rushed through the condo. That makes me feel really uneasy. All the time it was moved to the front of the agenda for the golf course, but when it came to something that impacts all of us, it was rushed through.
All right. Commissioners' discussion and comments. Anyone?
Well, I would just like to say, we have worked very hard in taking stuff to the board, and we get turned down, we get overridden. It's not for lack of trying. The board overrules us. When you understand how this works, we can work our tails off, and when it gets to them, if for whatever reason they don't like it, they can shut it down. And it isn't for lack of us trying, because we have. It's the board.
There's a different board now.
Well, to some degree.
And my comment, any laughter you're seeing is not because we think it's funny. It is, Vicki, it's my turn. It is a matter of frustration in that this is not, we spent in excess of a year writing and then rewriting options for that ordinance just to be in this situation. So we have done everything we can. And when I shake my head no, I don't think anything this planning commission sends to the board about private road ordinance will have any effect. You might, and you might be able to succeed where we have just run out of options. There's nothing we can do on that. If there's another avenue to take, another route to take, there's a different group of citizens involved than there was then, perhaps that will be successful where we were not. So they have them on the books. they can move forward with them.
Just respectfully, that's not how the laughter is perceived by the people out there. That's all I'm saying. It's not, I'm just being respectful and saying that's not how laughter is perceived by us.
Things can be frustrating on this side of the table too. And I will discuss with legal any conflict. There is no conflict in that nothing that happens with this ordinance could have any effect on my property. My property is locked, the rules are filed, the deeds are in effect, and the planning commission did nothing with this until everything was a done deal. There is no effect that anything that we do in this ordinance would have on my property. So I will discuss with legal and see if they have a different perspective on it. But every review I have done and when I have sent it to them, I have been told that it's not an issue. So, planning commission, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Just one thing, respectfully, I think there is a conflict of interest in that property on Chris and Williams. Property and Chris.
Okay, you're talking the golf course.
I am.
Not the
I
other.
am. I'm
Okay.
just bringing that up because that could be a problem, and I think you all need to think about it.
Okay.
And any other conflict of interest with condominiums.
Like I said, I can run it back through legal, but
Please.
I've been told in 6 ways to Sunday, if we changed anything, we'd have to come back to the planning commission. We'd have to come back to the board for any alteration to our master deed. It is done, filed, it is a done deal. So, ladies and gentlemen, any other comments from the planning commission? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Did I miss something? Nope.